having me. It's so nice to see so many old friends and happy faces here tonight. I never could have imagined 5 years ago when I went to the White House that it would lead me to you tonight. So here's another exciting chapter to that story. So I'm going to tell you about my trip to the White House, which is really part of a larger message. And the larger message is I just do my best every day in life to encourage those around me to follow their dreams and follow their passions and seize opportunities as they come. And when you have something that's really, in your heart and in your soul and you feel it calling, you pursue those things and take the opportunities. I guess I sort of came to that attitude through not a fun way, and I think many of us have been at places in life when suddenly life gives you a wake-up call and you realize, am I living my life the way I want to? Because you suddenly understand that our days here are limited and we need to make the most of the time that we have here and the people in our lives, and don't put off till tomorrow what you can do today, because we're not guaranteed a lot of time always. So through those wake-up calls, people sometimes change the way they live, and I know in my case that's what happened. I decided that it was time to live with more intention, and it was time to live fully every day, and that's what I try to do. So, having said that, I looked inside myself and said, what are my passions? What do I really enjoy? And I can identify two things that I've loved all my life. All my life, I've loved Christmas. Since I was a little kid, always loved it. And another thing that I've always been fascinated in since childhood was the White House. So I was here, about 6 years ago, working out on the treadmills upstairs, watching one of those TVs, and I saw a story about a woman that decorated the White House, and I thought, wow, that sounds like fun. So I went home and took a look at my bucket list and thought, I need to add that to my bucket list. And I'm sure everybody in here has a bucket list too of things that are interesting to you, or that you say, oh, I should do that someday. Do it. That's my message tonight. Do it. I put this on my list and came to a point where I said, all right, I'm going to try and act on this. The lady on TV is no different than me. She's just an ordinary middle-aged mom, and here she got to have this really cool experience. So if it can happen for her, I guess it could happen to me too. So I went ahead and took a chance and wrote my letter. I took a long time to write the letter and sent it and crossed my fingers. And some people would say, oh, the White House, that's out of my reach. Nothing's out of your reach. The people that you see are stories that you hear of people doing cool things. They're just people like you and me. So my message is reach for it. You never know what might happen. So I went out to wait for the school bus one day. My 8-year-old was on his way home, and I checked the mail, and wouldn't you know, there was an envelope in the mailbox with the return address that just said the White House. And I went, oh my God. So of course I'm standing at the end of the driveway, and I open it up, and it was the letter saying, you've been chosen. And so my 8-year-old was the first person that knew. And he got off the bus, I said, oh, you won't believe what happened. So I got my letter, and then the planning started. So I get this question all the time. I started to prepare for my trip to Washington. People always say, did the White House put you up? Do they pay for you? No, they don't. It's on the volunteers to find your way there, arrange accommodations, transportation, everything is on you. So that's what I did, made my plans, and on Thanksgiving Day that year, I said goodbye to the family. While they had turkey, I got in my car and drove to Washington, D.C. alone. So I get there, and Thanksgiving Day comes and goes, and then the next morning, which was a Friday morning, all the volunteers had to report to the White House to start a week of decorating. We were there for a week. And the volunteers were largely staying at all of the hotels within about 1 to 2 blocks walking distance of the White House. So within my hotel, we immediately realized who was there for decorating, and we would walk to and from the White House together each morning and then back each evening. So the first day we walk and we meet at the gate, and we're not going into the White House yet. What starts at this point is 2 days at a place called the White House Warehouse. So this is one of the coolest parts of the whole experience. It's a very top secret location, and when I say that, I'm not kidding. It's top secret. You can't get it on a GPS, you can't Google it, you can't find it. We all gathered by the gate and up-pulled a couple of party buses with all the curtains closed tight, and we all got in and had a great ride in the party bus to the warehouse. But the curtains were closed, and I swear they were just driving us in circles all over the place. We think we ended up in Maryland, but we're not sure. And going and coming was clearly different, so because it took us like 40 minutes to get there and like 5 minutes to get back. So we don't know where we were. The reason it's so cool, though, is I'm told that the value of everything in the White House warehouse far exceeds the value of everything in the White House. And the reason for that is it's the accumulation of all of the stuff from all the past presidencies. So you walk into this warehouse, it's truly a warehouse. Like, we had to wear sweaters, it was cold in there, it looked like a big Sam's Club. But you walk in and you would see an entire aisle of nothing but chandeliers. And then you'd see an entire aisle of nothing but presidential stationery. And another, I mean, it just went on for forever. You could not believe how big this place was. So we are headed off to the warehouse. This is what the rest of the United States sees the day after Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving weekend, you will see this on the news. There's the media over here. And, you know, the Obamas come out and they receive this tree, which ultimately ends up in the Blue Room. That's the official White House Christmas tree. And they take that into the building, and that's what you see. What you don't see is there were 100 of us at the warehouse. Wow. So off we go to the top secret warehouse, and while we're there, we are given our room assignments. I was initially assigned to a parlor on the ground floor called the Vermeil Room. So basically our decorating for the most part consisted of the state floor, which is the main floor with all the rooms that you commonly hear of, red room, green room, state dining room, you know, all those. This is a map of the ground floor, and that's where I started. So we received our initial room assignments, and it was our job at the warehouse to collect our materials. So each team, so my Vermeil Room team, we received a concept board, which designers had already pre-planned out for us during the course of the year. Every team, the designers had already determined you'll use these greens with these ornaments and this ribbon and this is your color scheme. And then when you had your concept board at the warehouse, you had to gather up your things. Once we gathered up our things, we started constructing things that we could ahead of time that we could move. So for example, we had large birch branches, and we were wiring on one by one these little ice crystals onto all these branches that would eventually go into the grand foyer. We made a big long gold pine cone garland. I mean, it was endless. We were there for 2 days, and 100 of us doing project after project after project of prep. And then our job was to load it all into the trucks. They do bring the dogs, the bomb-sniffing dogs. The dogs come through, sniff up all your boxes, and when you get it all clear, you close the box, and in the truck it goes. So off it went into the truck, and that was 2 days at the warehouse. Then it was day 3. Oh, it was so exciting. Sunday. We got to unload the trucks. And in it goes. Every box you see there is labeled, and it would go to the appropriate room. And that was just very exciting. HGTV had arrived at this point. They filmed Genevieve Gorder, if you've seen her specials. She was there filming everything, and that was a lot of fun. Exciting day. So off we go to our rooms. This is the Blue Room. Now, we technically weren't supposed to be taking many pictures during the installation process, so some of these are from the White House photographer, Pete Souza, and they do post them to whitehouse.gov, and we're able to view them that way. So there's a limited number of pictures for the construction phase. The party's a different story, so you'll get to see a lot of pictures there. But here you get a sense of what happens. It's really exciting. The velvet ropes basically come down, and we have full access to the state floor, ground floor, and certain people are tapped to go to other jobs. For example, a girl that I became close with, they called her out. They saw she had exceptional bow making skills. So she got to go to Michelle Obama's personal office and do the tree topper for her. Certain people had done the West Wing. That was exciting for them, very special to be tagged for that. And so here we are working away. There's the red room. This gentleman right here, some of you might know his name. He was the other person from Ohio that year. He and I were the two from Ohio. That's Bill Hickson. He used to own Peddlerstown out on 306, and he owns Hickson's in Lakewood and had floral design school. So he has gone for, it's something like 34 years now. And that gives you a sense, like there were, amongst all the volunteers, there are people there that are professionals, a few that get the call back every year because they need that continuity. All the way down to people that really don't have any skills. There was a college student there that he was an intern for Senator Lieberman, and when we all met each other on the party bus the first morning, we were all telling each other, how did you get to do this? And he goes, well, my friends dared me to apply, and I did, and I got picked. So he just unloaded trucks all week because he had no skills. We would have him move boxes. You get sent to the beating table. If you got sent to the beating table, you knew you were like really low in the pecking order. So while we were working, I can't say enough, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, about the White House staff. What a phenomenal group of people. They made us feel so welcome. They were so warm. They were so helpful. It was a pleasure to work with them every day, and I genuinely mean that. This gentleman here, he was the chief usher at the time, Stephen Rochon. He's actually spent some time working for the Coast Guard here in Cleveland. So he was wonderful. He was kind of like the head of the staff. So he made sure everything was just so. And wonderful, wonderful staff. So we have worked and we have decorated all the rooms. Once you completed a room, you would be reassigned to other rooms where they needed help. So for example, I started in a small room, in a parlor. It took us about a day and a half in the Vermeil room. The Vermeil room is it's a ladies' sitting room, and in that room you'll find the portraits of the first ladies. You'll find Jackie Kennedy's, it's silver service, but it's dipped in gold, and that's what Vermeil is. Vermeil is silver, gold-plated silver, basically. And so when I was reassigned, I went on to work in multiple rooms, mostly the East Room, also the China Room, a couple of other areas. If you didn't work in the rooms during the installation, you most likely worked on elements at the warehouse that eventually went into other spaces. So you feel like you really had your hand in a lot of projects in a lot of rooms, and that made it really fun. So here we are on a very cold, cold, cold day. This is us standing in line waiting to be cleared for security for the party, which happened on the last day that we were in Washington. And what I will say is one of the girls in this picture actually lives in Pittsburgh. She's a florist, and she and I became fast and furious friends and still keep in touch to this day. It was a lot of fun bonding with the other volunteers. I think you just spend a lot of time together, and when you share such an unusual experience, and it's so much fun. I mean, it was all like all of us had just won the lottery. So we had a great time together. So here we are waiting to get into the party, and now is when we were allowed to start taking pictures. So I could have gone on like all night with pictures, but I won't, because you can access them online as well if you just Google White House Christmas. But I picked a few. I love this. This is the colonnade on the ground floor, and those windows are they just fill with sunlight every morning. It's a beautiful space. It overlooks the Jackie Kennedy Garden and Washington Monument in the distance. It's just a beautiful space, and this is right outside the parlor that I decorated. So when I would take breaks, I would kind of come down this hallway and just take a breather for a few minutes. We would work from about 7 in the morning until 6 at night, 100 of us. So that gives you a sense of how much work goes into it. And if you figure the designers, the florists, and the florist whole department spent the whole year planning it, that's how many of us it took to do the installation. It was extensive. So this is the lower cross hall. The Vermeer room that I did is actually right in there. Right in there. Across is the library and other small parlors on the lower level. This is the Vermeer room.
Oh, so pretty.
There were 4 of us in here doing this room. So those are the 2 trees that we did. Each room had a theme, and ours was that it was the overall theme that year was simple gifts. In this room, it was the gift of music. So our theme was musical, and there were little musical brass ornaments all over the trees. It was very pretty. And there I am, living the dream. The mantle, that's kind of my baby. I spent a lot of time on that, and it was especially exciting when the HGTV special highlighted that one. So I was kind of like, oh, yeah, kind of nice. So, but what a special time. Oh, so we finished that room in a day and a half, and on I went to other rooms. This is a room called, we call it the Dip Room. It's the Diplomatic Reception Center. You'll see the president receive heads of state or, special guests in this room. It's the round room, and when you walk out, that's onto the south lawn. So the door is right out the back here of this room. Grand foyer. Grand foyer. That room at the end would be the East Room, where I also spent a lot of time working in the East Room. It's so moving to be in these spaces because you can't help but be overwhelmed when you're in there and think, this is where John Kennedy was laid out. This is where Princess Diana danced with John Travolta. This is, you're there and you're thinking about all these things and you're standing in that space in your socks, like climbing scaffolding. It's pretty overwhelming. I love this picture because this gold pine cone garland, it's not the best shot of the garland. This is President Obama and Mrs. Obama. This picture was taken by photographer of the White House, Pete Souza, and my girlfriend from Pittsburgh and I constructed this pine cone garland by hand at the warehouse. And let me tell you, I think some of my skin is on garland. Our hands were raw. They basically showed up with a 15-foot long piece of rope and bags of gold pine cones. Said, "Can you make a garland?" And we said, "Okay." We got to work, and so I'm a little partial to that picture. The red room was just beautiful that year. Each year, different rooms kind of stand out. And this particular year, I thought red room was beautiful. This is the state dining room. The fun part for me while we were there is that every day the White House staff made lunch for us, and we ate lunch in the state dining room every day. So that was really special. And here we are with the gingerbread house and the HGTV crew. For the staff, the reveal on the gingerbread house is like a highlight for them. They work very, very hard on that gingerbread house. And when this happens, everything stops in the White House and everybody goes to the state dining room. This girl right here actually is a pastry chef. She's from Youngstown, named Susie. So, you just felt like you just got to know people when you were there and make connections. And that's Genevieve Gorder from HGTV on the left in the black dress. And the gingerbread house, 450 pounds it was. Oh. Wow. And they constructed in the China room, which is on the ground floor, but then they have to move it to the state dining room. And when that happens, everybody holds their breath. So we watched it go out the room and up the elevator and into the state dining room. And when it's in place, boy, a big round of applause goes up. And that's a big deal. So when you see that on the HGTV special, you know that White House staff is very excited. So then here we are at the party, and of course the highlight was Mrs. Obama did come, speak to everybody, shake our hands, thanked us for the great work, and it was a pleasure to meet her. So the White House, of course, knows how to throw a party, and it's not just about the decorations. They pay attention not only to the things that you're going to see visually, but all your senses. You take the military band. This was a cappella choir from, I want to say maybe it was Princeton, but every space you go to, there was music. There was amazing food. I love this picture of the turkey because whenever I look through my pictures, it reminds me to garnish my platters instead of just having the bird like covered up with some greens. It looks a little better. And as I said, we all bonded over the course of the week. We just had so much fun. And some of these people